Hello and welcome to tonight's PPG IndyCar World Series event, round 9, the Marlboro 500, coming to you tonight from the Michigan International Speedway, a track located in the Irish Hills in southeastern Michigan, 70 miles, west of Detroit. A 2-mile D-shaped oval, and based on the times in qualifying, it is going to be a tight and difficult affair for all of the drivers. The track itself, as I mentioned, is the Michigan International Speedway, 2 miles in a D shape, and our drivers will be doing 250 laps, which will equal the 500 miles of this event. Things to look out for in this event will be low wings, meaning that the cars will be just a little bit wayward to the drivers. I spoke to a couple of them before the event, and they more or less said that when I asked, are there any sections that you feel are dangerous or terrifying? And they said, well, all of it. Alluding to the low wings, meaning that any mistake is compounded greatly and quite a few folds when you make them. Looking at the points and the point scheme first and foremost, same as usual, 20 points for win, 16 points for second, 14 for third, 12 for fourth, 10 for fifth, and 8 points for sixth. And then from 7th to 12th positions, finishing or at least classified in those positions, will gain from 6 points for 7th to 1 point for 12th. Additionally, 1 point is scored for pole position, which, if I saw correctly in the sheets, will be in the hands of Ruben Fernandez this evening, driving the Patrick Racing March 87C with the Ilmore power plant. And also 1 point is scored for the most laps led. That one we will have to wait and see on, but at least the 1 point for pole has been given. Both finishers and non-finishers are scoring points, and all rounds count towards the championship total, meaning that consistency is key. In terms of the points themselves, Grant Midall is currently leading the championship after round 8 last time out on 110 points. John Tim is second in the championship on 98 points. Anders Nilsson, who put on a spectacular drive in the PC16 chassis up at Cleveland last time out, is third in the championship on 83 points. He is not driving this evening. He might be watching though. Brian Yannick is fourth on 63 points, and just 1 point behind is Niklas Kirsten in fifth. Niklas as well, preliminarily not making tonight's race. Though if he is able to make it, he will be joining in the ongoing warm-up session. Hang on for just a second. There we are. Tires and fuel limits, good to know for this race. Each car is allowed an unlimited set of tires and tires for this event, being qualifying, warm-up and a race. And for the race itself, each car is limited to 7 full tanks. That is 285.6 US gallons, or just a smidge over 1,081 liters for the race. And they must start with a full tank, the drivers. Which I can't see anyone going, yeah, let's start with less fuel. Because 2 miles a lap should mean that you need all the fuel that you can get. Also, as I hear drivers are starting to go out on track, let's have a quick look at what is coming up here at ISO. Being next weekend on July 6th, the Adak Bavaria Rennen Salzburgring. The penultimate round, round 10 of 11 of our 1979 DRM Division 2 Championship. The race starting at 2000 CEST, 1 hour later than tonight's race, which should be starting in just over 7 minutes time. That race will be high speed, 4-wheel drifts, all the good fun stuff of the tin top racing in the late 70s. Also, in what will be 2 weeks' time, we have the Escort Radar Warning 200. Round 10 of 15 of our 1987 Kart Championship Series. Green flag for that event will be 2000 CEST. And that race takes place on the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, or may have been known as Mid-Ohio back in the late 80s. But Mid-Ohio will be the venue for round 10. So let's see if we might just be able to get on board with one of our drivers for a lap or two around this 2-mile D-shaped oval. Here we have Simon Wattman in the March 86C Elmore Penske. Wait a second, that doesn't sound like the Elmore, that is the Corsa, the one Corsa in the Penske garage. Through 1 and 2, we can see that exit looks just a bit sketchy for the 86C. Down into 3. Notice full throttle until you're fully committed to the turn. Then there's a slight lift, and then holding onto the car all the way through. And across the start-finish line once more. So very much low wing, low drag. Hold on to the car to the best of your abilities. Ooh, drifting up very high between 1 and 2 for Wattman. As someone else has been off towards the exit point of 2. And we can see Grant Riddall in behind as well in that Renault Racing entry. Oh, and there we go. Simon Wattman unfortunately spinning. He definitely needs to do a little something to the rear end of his March 86C. Here we have a Lola T87 in the hands of Johan Bos. Oh, and a big crash up ahead. Holy moly, that was what was left of Simon Wattman, and someone else collected him by the looks of things. That looked very unpleasant indeed. As Johan Bos, we can see with a good turn of speed in his T87 with the Cosworth power plant in the back, running third in this warm-up session. And somewhat surprising, to me at least, is that currently fastest in the warm-up session is Bruno Pagiola in the RCR Racing entry. That car is a March 87C Cosworth combination, which, to be fair, was the combination that won the race outright back in 1987. That time it was the Craig Racing entry for Michael Andretti who picked up the win. But that being said, still surprising to see that in the warm-up session the 87C being with the Cosworth power plant being that quick. There in behind we can see one of the Patrick Racing entries as well, along with that's August Watering, one of the Hemmelgarn cars, I believe he is driving. The car that Scotty Brayton drove back in the day. See here Pagiola practicing a pit entry. Probably a good idea. As now fastest is Brian Yannick in the car Tom Sneva drove for the final time in 87. In this 500 mile event. The Skull Bandit Curb Racing entry, that is. Of note about this Michigan International Speedway is that the groundbreaking for the construction took place on 28th of September 1967. And it was designed, the oval that is, by Charles Moneypenny, who previously also designed the 2.5 mile Daytona International Speedway oval. And the original layout, which the oval was still in use by 87, but the road courses were not, included infield and exterior roads for road course purposes, which could be combined to a 3.1 mile road course, or divided into two 1.9 mile interior and exterior road courses. And the most interesting bit of that is that the road courses were designed by the F1 legend Sterling Moss. So clearly some pedigree in terms of the design of road course layouts. Unfortunately they weren't in use for that long. The exterior road course, the last race held at the exterior road course, or using the exterior road course, was in 1973, so can't have gotten more than 3 or 4 years out of the exterior road course, unfortunately. The last interior road course race, though, was held all the way back in, well, all the way forward from 73, in 1984, as Richard Wilkes with Brabham Honda, currently fastest in this warm-up session. Quite impressive as well. Let's see, we should have a couple of one-off drivers. Here we have August Watering, as we noted earlier, the Hamelgarn car, the number 91, in a real-life race in the hands of Scotty Brayton. We have Alberto Senior taking on a race in the number 30 Doug Shearson Racing entry, the Domino's Pizza car, or team it was also known as. Al Unser Jr. drove that car back in the day. Also in a one-off race is Greg Della Cella, driving the Hardee's sponsored number 29 Machinists Union Racing entry, and March 7th C Cosse, which Poncho Carter drove back in the day. As it looks like we are getting set to head into the race session. Nope, just a slight lag spike, hopefully not something that will happen very often. Another one-off, back again in the number 48 Arciero Racing car is Dave Miller. As something definitely seems to be up. Question is whether it's... Please stand by and I will have a little look. So hopefully things are sorted. Welcome back. We are looking at Dave Miller's number 48 RCR Racing entry, a March 85C. Probably the slowest car qualifying for the race today, but we'll be looking to have some good running fun either way in this race. I believe that's it for one of drivers this evening. Looks like it indeed. Currently Thiago Canola fastest in this warm-up session now. Running in behind what looked to be Jason White. It is. Jason White himself currently 6th. About half a second off the ultimate pace. Look back over the rear wing as Canola draws closer down the back straight. But seemingly happy to sit in behind and until now. Now he goes up the inside. Oh no! Yikes! That was Juha Boos involved as well. Holy moly. Looks like both Jason White and Juha Boos picked up some damage, because Jason White is, by the looks of things, running without a front wing. And practicing then a pit entry without a front wing. And his Newman Haas racing entry, driven back in the day by Mario Andretti, and escapes back to the pits. Now we have Michael Drexler driving an 86C with the Ilmor power plant in the back. So all the Penske's tonight running the March 86C chassis. Drexler and Bouchard running the Ilmor power plants, while Simon Wattman is driving with the Cosworth power plant in the back of his March chassis. Additionally, quickly about the track, is that between 1968 and 2007, Michigan International Speedway, this track, hosted a total of 55 IndyCar races across USAC, CART and Indy Racing League sanctioning. Seeing a whole heap of open wheel racing with slightly different rule sets and drivers along the way. Several drivers had their first wins as well at this track, one of which was in this race back in 1987, that being the driver of Pancho Carter, who drove the number 29 Hardy-sponsored Machinists Union Racing entry, tonight in the hands of Greg Dalla Cella. He won his only IndyCar win here at Michigan International Speedway in 1981. Have Jules Bouchard, the Danny Sullivan number 3 Penske, the Miller sponsored one. Third of the Penskes. And so, warm-up is almost over. And the race, which is likely to take around 2.5 hours, is set to begin. So on pole will be Ruben Fernandez. On the number 20, Emerson Fittipaldi, Patrick Racing entry. Second on the grid is Richard Wilkes for Gallus Racing. Third is Jason White for Newman Haas Racing, with fourth August Watering in the Hamilton Racing entry. Brian Yannick lines up fifth with John Tim in sixth. Seventh for Alberto Quino with eighth for Grant Riddall. Ninth for Ray Riddall, and running out the top 10 is Bruno Pagiola in the RCR Racing entry number 12. Michael Drexler lines up 11th with Juha Boos in 12th. Rob De Vries in 13th with David Wattman 14th. Greg Della Cella lines up 15th with Bruno Chacon 16th. Simon Wattman lines up 17th with Marazzi 18th. Dave Miller lines up 19th with Jules Bouchard in 20th. David Saber 21st with Alberto Ibanez, Alberto Senior, in 22nd. 23rd and last starting is Thiago Canola, seemingly having had a blunder in qualifying. And everyone surely nervous ahead of this 500-mile start. All of them raring to go, and the safety car, pace car, is into the pits. Everyone lined up. And the race is underway. Ruben Fernandez leads us away. Jason White looking to go up the inside. August Watering around the outside. Falling back is Richard Wilkes. Looks like everyone will get through 1 and 2 okay on this opening lap. Way back to Canola at the moment. So leading at the end of lap 1 is Ruben Fernandez, August Watering for close company. Bit of a gap down to what I'd assume to be about 7th or 8th. And everyone's streaming through. Going around outside trying is August Watering, with Jason White trying to go that high line as well. Looks to be side by side up the front. But Fernandez using that Ilmore power plant to pull ahead. Here comes Brian Yannick as well with a good start, looking up the inside of the Hamilton Racing entry. Yes, my broadcast assistant wants something from me, but she'll have to wait for a little while. As Yannick has made his way up to second and diving up the inside of Fernandez into the lead. And in behind Jason White goes fast Watering as well, as does Wilkes. Thanks for bearing with us there. I was having a physical issue. We could see, while I was dealing with that, Jason White up in our wall on the exit, on the entry of 1, and that is how easy this track can bite. Very fortunate that he was able to keep the car under control and bring it down to the apron and into the pits, but unfortunately he will be a few laps down by the time the pit crew has made repairs to his T87 chassis. In the meantime, Richard Wilkes has taken the lead with Yannick in second, Fernandez in third, Pagiola fourth, Boss in fifth with Grant Riddall up into sixth, Jon Tim in seventh with Rob De Vries in eighth, ninth is August Watering, and rounding out the top 10 is Jules Bouchard at the moment, followed by Ray Riddall and Alberto Equino, as a yellow flag is out. Looks like it might be for Alberto Senior, having had an issue. It is indeed. So the Doug Shearson Racing entry is out. Let's jump on board with Alberto Senior, going through 3 into 4, and the car just lazy goes loose on him. And unfortunately high up in the wall and losing the rear wheel, doing what he can then to try and keep the car high while the car slows down, doing a decent enough job keeping it high and off the racing line, and unfortunately Alberto already out of this race as the yellow is out. So unfortunately the yellow is out for the first time tonight, with Wilkes in the lead, Yannick second, Boss third, Riddall fourth, Bouchard now fifth, Jon Tim in sixth, Watering seventh or eighth with Rob De Vries working with him, Ray Riddall ninth, Little Al in 10th, Drexler 11th, Marazzi 12th, Canola 13th, Saber 14th, Della Cella 15th, David Wattman 16th, Chacon 17th, Bemel 18th, Simon Wattman 19th, Bruno Pagiola into the pits in 20th at the moment, and Ruben Fernandez with damage to his car heading into the pits as well, so I wonder if those two came together then. That's unfortunate to say the least. Looks like unfortunately our pole man is out. Ruben Fernandez has retired due to the damage sustained with this yellow coming out. And Bruno Pagiola has retired as well. So unfortunately 3 retired cars as this yellow flag period is bringing us to a slower pace. So in addition to the IndyCar races held at this track, by the way, this track has also hosted NASCAR Cup Series races, as well as Xfinity and Truck Series races via NASCAR. Indy Lights has been here racing, as well as ARCA, IMSA, Trans Am and the original Can-Am series. As our drivers will have to get ready because the green flag is about to be waved once again here at Michigan International Speedway. Was everyone behind is speeding up, but Wilkes couldn't go because he was waiting for the safety car. That is not a fair restart for Wilkes. Oh, and 3 wide, holy moly. Well, you have Bulls running 6th in this line. Fastest lap of the race so far. Grant is trying to get away, but Wilkes is back up to speed, working his way past this traffic that passed him on the restart. Coming on board with Grant Vidal and Raynor Racing entry, looking back towards Richard Wilkes. We can see Grant Vidal now caught by the group behind, as Richard Wilkes is opening up the gap further and further up ahead, and lap traffic starting to kick in at, I believe, is Simon Wattman just about to be lapped up ahead. Greg Dalla Cella has just retired. Just seeing if... looks like that is... no, it was indeed a crash, unfortunately. Dirty air catching the American out through 1 and 2. as Rob de Vries retires on the following lap, same place, running wide in the dirty air. And we see now two further retirees, Alberto Jr. and David Saber. Unsure if they are related, as well as pit stops. First pit stops of this race. Oh no, it is in the pit stops. So this is little Al coming in and trying to find his pit stall, but locks the rears as looks like Bouchard in his at the same time is trying to find his pit stall. And little Al trying to get out of the way of everyone else, trying to find his way. Oh no! And that was David Saber as well, presumably missing his pit stall, and both of them make contact in the pits. Ay 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 ay. That is highly unfortunate. As Drexler into the pits as well. Jon Tim in 7th now, Canola 6th. Watering 5th. You have Bors in 4th, and then a gap up to Richard Wilkes, currently still in lead. Yannick in, no, well, what I was going to say being the preliminary lead, but looks like he may have been jumped by Vidal and Yannick. Yannick now looking up the inside of Grant there. Seems like he's not able to make it work though, at least not right now. And Jason White in behind both of them, trying to unlap himself. Currently running in 15th place. And this is very much a I want to just get ahead of these two, then I can get that full lap back if another yellow comes out. Dear me, it looks like Jason White, unfortunately, in his endeavors to try and stay on as good on the pace as possible. Ooh, took the pit entry just a tad bit wrong, hit the grass on the inside, and that spat his car hard into the retaining wall between the track and the pit lane. And that is unfortunately Jason White out of this race. Yikes, that looked like a bad one. So Simon Wattman running 15th and last car running at the moment. 12 seconds behind Dave Miller in 14th. He is 8 seconds behind Chacon, who's running 13th. Then we have David Wattman, 17 seconds up the road in 12th. A further 9.5 seconds up the road is Drexler in 11th. A further 3 seconds up the road is Filippo Marazzi running in 10th for Hamilton. That car, the number 71 Hamilton entry, was driven in a real-life race by Arvid Leyendijk, who finished 5th in the race back in 1987. David currently running 9th with Jules Bouchard in 8th. That Penske entry finished 4th in the real-life race back in 1987. Jonatan currently 7th, but that car won this race back in the day. So clearly some potential in that Quaker Racing entry. Just a question of, can Jonatan emulate Michael Andretti's success here tonight. August Watering currently running in 6th in the Scott Brayton driven car. Johan Boos for AJ Foyt in 5th. Thierry Canola currently running 4th in the Dick Simon entry. Grant Vidal is running in 3rd. Richard Wilkes currently 2nd. And Brian Yannick in 1st. And it does look like Wilkes has the legs in the stint itself, because he is closing in on Brian Yannick. And that is hands over fists as well. Let's take to the T-cam and look ahead from the Gallus Racing entry towards the back of the March 87C Club Racing entry, the Mean Green machine as they would later become. Look at that, Yannick's car moving around all over in 3 and 4. Wilkes' car, but looks at things way more settled. There looked like he was getting a bit uncomfortably close to the outside wall on the exit of 4. So it does look like the top 9 is within within distance if anything happens up front. let's take to the nose cam of Thiago Canola's Dick Simon Racing entry, as he is trying to get to grips with Grand Vidal's Rainer Racing car. Wow, look at that, what a better exit Canola got out of 4. With all crossed up, coming just to the exit of 4. Simon Wattman driving the number 6 Penske Racing entry. The car driven in the real-life race by Al Ansesinia. That chassis and driver combination finished 2nd in the real-life race. So I would say that is quite impressive by Ansesinia to get that car that far up the field, being a March 86 chassis, meaning it wasn't as aerodynamically efficient as the T87 in a straight line, and this track is all about top speed. But I suppose the Cosworth power plant did help a little bit in the fuel department for Ansesinia. But yet still an impressive feat to get the March 86 into 2nd back in 1987. Let's see here, Michael Drexler is currently closing in on the car ahead, which is Filippo Marazzi in the Hemmelgarn Racing line dyke car. While they hopefully continue to close up to one another, I was talking about several drivers getting their first ever win here at MIS, the Michigan International Speedway. We mentioned Poncho Carter before the race. Back in 1983, John Paul Jr. got his only IndyCar race win. If I remember correctly, John Paul Jr. later ran into, shall we say, other issues in terms of financing his racing career, which put an end to it altogether. But that's a story for another time, if I am remembering correctly. If I'm not, then my apologies. In 1985, Emerson Fittipaldi got his first IndyCar win at this venue. In 1992, a driver that was in this race, Scott Goodyear, got his first IndyCar win and would score one further win at MIS in 1994, so 2 years later. A racing legend, at least in more modern times, Tony Kanaan, who finished his racing career just a couple of years ago in IndyCar racing, got his first win here at MIS in 1999, then called the US 500, a kart-sanctioned race back then. And likewise, a legend of karts especially, but also IndyCar in the years to come, Patrick Carpentier won at this venue in 2001, which was the last kart-sanctioned 500 at this Michigan International Speedway. And at least for me, being born in the early 90s, names I recognize in this list from just growing up is Tony Kanaan and Patrick Carpentier, because both of them raced in kart at the same time as Kenny Breck, and back then the kart championship was actually broadcast on Swedish television. One of those interesting or not so interesting facts, depending on how you spin it, but back then kart was quite big in Sweden because of Kenny Breck, obviously. See here, the battle is now on for 10th place, as Grant Midall has dropped to 5th in the meantime. Canola and now Bors has passed him, but let's give these two, in the form of Filippo Marazzi and Michael Drexler, some screen time, because they deserve it too. Here the leaders in behind as well. Richard Wilkes, current race leader, as Marazzi drops right down to the... oh, he's actually heading into the pits. So lap 70 for Marazzi, second pit stop. Seems just a tad bit early in my book. Jon Tim still 7th, but only 1.7 now, behind August Watering, who himself is some 2.5 seconds roughly behind Grant Midall in 4th. Canola now 3rd, Yannick second, Wilkes first, so pit stops galore at the moment, because I'd assume your boss is indeed in the pits as well, and the rest is surely to come. Here comes another one. I believe that is Ray Riddle. That looks like 22 indeed. And here comes Grant Riddle as your boss leaves his pit stall. Oh, Grant locks it right up, but ooh, just barely misses his pit stall. That is unnecessary 2 odd seconds lost. Here comes Bouchard, and I believe that is Wilkes behind. It is. Can he hit his pit stall correctly? He does. And here comes Yannick. So, oh, all locked up. Holy moly! Misses his pit stall by quite a bit. Yikes, that is a lot of time lost in the pits, and still haven't parked it in the pit stall. There he goes. Yikes, and another one missing the pit stall further back. There comes Jon Tim, nice and calm into the pits. That is Watering, I believe, who had all hell trying to get into his pit stall. Here comes Bruno Chacon in the leader card racing entry, as well as oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh no! Big hit into the retaining wall there. That was I'm not sure who that was. That was a big hit. Shades of can't remember what year it was, but it was an oval race where someone lost it coming into the pits, slid into the pits, released the brakes to try and get the car away from the pit wall and hit the retaining wall. Oh no, that was Canola! Oh dearie me, surely not! What rotten luck! Yikes! So let's see, he is heading into the pits, he has Chacon ahead of him. Canola slows down, or trying to slow down. Chacon has already slowed down for his stall. Canola in between two thoughts, should I go inside, outside? Carries too much speed when he does turn, his car goes loose. He tries to lock it up and slow it down, but he locks the brakes, and then he's a passenger hard into the retaining wall. Yikes. Just lucky that we are driving in Sims and not in real life. That would have been a very unpleasant incident indeed. Yikes, that's really bad luck for Canola. Jon Tim has made his way past Watering in those pit stops. Watering's very tardy pit entry into his pit box will have accounted for that. Grant Riddle running 4th then, with Bors in 3rd. That elevates Filippo Marazzi back up to 10th. And Drexler still running, now in 7th, but still has a pit stop to do, I reckon. Yannick in 2nd, and Richard Wilkes still in the lead. Now 15 seconds in the lead. So I reckon only a pit stop blunder or a mechanical failure should be able to take Richard Wilkes' win away from him in this race. Because so far he looks to be the class of the field. And look at that, 35.403 is his lap this time. 34, I think that was... Anyway, just barely slower than his fastest lap time so far. And here comes Drexler into the pits. Let's see if he is able to jump Marazzi. As Drexler looks to be able to run very long indeed, despite running the Ilmo power plant, but maybe he's running it a bit too lean in terms of getting the outmost pace out of the car. Here goes Drexler out of the pits. He has 15 seconds until Marazzi comes flying by. I reckon Marazzi will be able to outdo him just barely here. I believe that was Wilkes flying by. Here comes Wattman, and no, Drexler actually coming out well ahead of Marazzi. 7 seconds, though with cold tires, but we'll make that 4 seconds actually. Timing just needs to catch up on itself. So slightly cold tires, so it'll be close, but I reckon Drexler has jumped Marazzi in the pit stops. And that means Drexler up to 9th with the demise of Thiago Canola in this race. We're all in 8th, Jules Bouchard running in 7th, Watering in 6th, and trying to hold on to Jon Tim's Craig Racing car. As we have a yellow out. Yellow is out. For whom or what, I wonder? Is that for Dave Miller? Is he running in behind David Wattman here? Oh, and he loses the car. Hard into the outside wall, both rear tires off the car. And he is a passenger. And exits out, but unfortunately that means Dave Miller is out. And the yellow flag flies once more here at MIS. So with this yellow, let's have a look at the trivia question for this evening. With 82 laps in the books, the trivia question for you this evening is: who holds the official race lap record for the 2-mile oval at Michigan International Speedway? Is it A, Emerson Fittipaldi? Is it B, Gil de Ferran? Or is it C, Adrian Fernandez? Definitely a question worthy of this trivia. I had a stab in the dark at it when I saw the question and I got it wrong. But maybe you all will have an easier time with this question. As you can see, there is a gap, so there are might have been 3 cars there behind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 cars between Wilkes and Yannick in second, so Wilkes will be hoping to open up the gap again, as the safety car will come in presumably at the end of this next lap, or possibly in 2 laps time. As a couple of cars towards the back decides to head into the pit lane. Let's see, actually towards the back, that is Grant Widall into the pits. As well as was that was Jon Tim indeed. So Jon Tim and Grant Widall deciding to try a slightly off strategy. Topping up the car with a bit of fuel, possibly some new tires during this yellow. We'll be hoping to catch up to the back of this snake before the green flag is given. As I believe they are now leaving their pit stalls. Let's see if that's the right call. Is the safety car coming into the pits this time by? Do they have one more lap? Looks like it's at least one more lap behind the pace car. So both Grant Widall and Jon Tim may have made a inspired choice here. negative thing is they have the whole snake in front of them, but with more fuel in the car and able to run a little bit longer, maybe that is all they need to, towards the end of the race, skip and jump to the front of this now 14 car field. Make it 13 car field. Looks like the pace car is coming in. Let's see if the restart is a bit more cordial and correct this time around. Oh no, people towards the back are jumping the queue. There will surely be a few penalties handed out after this race for these restarts. It is supposed to be more or less line astern until the leader crosses the start-finish line, as far as I'm aware. And these restarts are looking just a bit meh in that regard. But either way, Wilkes continues in the lead in this 500-mile race. 87 laps in a moment in the books. 2 seconds to lead for him, ahead of Grant Riddall now, with Yannick in third. Ryan Yannick has you have balls for close company as well. So for now, a lot of dirty air for these drivers to try and deal with as they battle for third and fourth. Thing is, even though they are like cars laps down, they aren't that incredibly much slower than the leading cars. We could see in the warm-up, I noticed the field were covered by about a second, maybe just a tiny bit over a second total. That is pretty much nothing at these speeds. Yannick gets back past Grant Riddall up to second, and Juha Boos is trying to follow the Detroitian through. There he goes, looking up the inside into 3 and 4. Looked like he was able to make it. Nope, he continues behind the Brit. That Juha Boos with a great run coming off of 2. There he goes up the inside, down the back straight and into 3. The move is done. And unfortunately for Juha, nearly a second loss to Yannick. And here comes August Watering as well. So Watering with a great restart, great run off of 4. Back past Grant Riddall as well. I wonder if Grant may be running a bit more wing than the cars around him, because he is running a Lola T87 and he looks to be losing out in the straight line speed compared to Watering, for example, who is running a March 87. Juha Boos is running a T87, to be fair to Lola, but both Wilkes and Yannick are running Marches, which are not quite as drag efficient as the Lola, the newest Lola status. Some 5 seconds opened up already for Wilkes on this restart. Really showing some excellent speed in that Gallus Racing Brabham Honda powered March entry. This, your balls not able to make anything to get by Ray Riddall at the moment, and August Watering closing in from behind. Siam on board. With the nose cam for August Watering's March 87 Hemmelgarn entry. So we can see that Yannick is pulling away from these two, but Richard Wilkes is pulling away from everyone else as Watering continues to put Joabos under pressure. As Watering with a great run off of 4, as we have now 100 laps in the books. 150 to go, and Watering not able to make it work that time round. That Lola T87 in the hands of Joabos is quite quick down the straight. Notice as well Grant Riddall is under pressure from Jules Bouchard in the Penske. Look at that, Bouchard sails by Grant. So either Grant is running too much wing, or he's running way too little wing. But I reckon, considering he's in the slipstream there, but still falling back, he is struggling for fuel, and with a car that is just a bit too draggy, him a further 2.2 seconds back, and then we have Ray Bredol in 8th, a lap behind the leaders. Filippo Marazzi currently running in 9th. Michael Drexler has dropped behind Marazzi, but still within striking distance of the Italian. Germany versus Italy, just like, sort of sounds like the Soccer World Championship. Back in the day, they quite often had battles in the playoffs of the World Championships. Unfortunately, in recent years, Italy has had lackluster performances, but good battles may still be on in that regard. But here on track, it's definitely on between Italy and Germany. David Wattman, the Swede, is running just ahead of Chacon, 11th and 12th for these two. Wattman running the Alex Morales Motorsports. March 87C with the Cosworth engine, driven in real life by Johnny Rutherford. Driver with quite a few accolades on ovals. Behind Bruno Chacon in the leader card races, number 24. Also a March 87C with the Cosworth engine, so similar equipment for these two. Maybe a slightly different setups. That leader card racing entry was driven in this race in real life by Randy Lewis. And still running, unfortunately a lap behind everyone else, is Simon Wattman in that Penske with a March 86C chassis. August Watering still trying to get to grips with Joa Boos. You are a bit wide then. Watering may with an opportunity right here, using the traffic as a pick. There he goes up past. Can Joa Boos counter? Looked like August cut it fine with the outside wall, but kept it on the grey stuff and not into the white beige stuff. And up to third he goes. Watering is wanting to put on a good show in that Brayton entry, and so far so good, running third now. 8 seconds behind Brian Yannick, who is running in second. Ooh, Watering wide on the entry then. Yikes! That will have put some pressure on the bowels. I reckon might need some new underwear after that one. That was really close to a visit to the outside wall and retirement if he would have struck the outside wall. So unfortunately Watering back to fourth, and with all to do once again. know someone has hit the wall, quite heavy as well by the looks of things. Exit of 2. See if we can catch who that was. Might have been Simon Wattman. Looks like it is. It was indeed. Let's see if we can catch what happened. Looked like it was okay on the way in. Some lag, but it looks like he may have had a snap of oversteer. And unfortunately couldn't hold it, as Ray Riddle has been in the pits as well. I wonder why that is. Is that just for an actual stop, or did he have some damage on the car? Just going to go back until we can see. It doesn't look like it. Looks like it's a normal regulation pit stop for him. May have anticipated a yellow. No, it's on stop because everyone else is coming into the pits. Jon Tim, Grant Riddle and Joa Bo still continuing. Obviously Riddle and Tim pitted during that last yellow. So they have some more fuel in the car, but Joa Bo's surprisingly running very long this stint. Must have saved a boatload of fuel during that previous yellow. Continues for another lap. Not sure that is a good idea, because lap traffic up ahead. It looks like they are battling for position. Marazzi a lap ahead of Chacon. But yet that is a situation Joa could do without, I'm fairly sure. Let's see if Joa decides to pit this time by. Looks like he's carrying too much speed though. Yep, he continues again. So quite a few laps saved during that last yellow. That on low fuel, he is opening up the gap a little bit to Wilkes. So it'll be interesting to see how big of a gap do you need to get out in front of someone else, as he is just behind Yannick now. On track, that is. That is another situation, because these two are more or less as fast as the other. Difference being Yannick on full tank of fuel at the moment. Joa Bo's towards the end of his fuel tank. That line might signify... Nope, still continuing. And very interesting strategy call from Juha here. So it feels like Juha is rolling the dice in terms of Can he make this bold call work? And here he comes. Ooh! Did what Jason did, almost causes his own retirement, I suppose, as well, but he is able to continue, and into the pits he comes, followed in by, is that Chacon, I think, in the background? Looks like the leader card races entry. Let's have a quick look, actually. No, that is Jonatan, actually, the Kraker Racing entry. Difficult to make out the colors at this distance for myself, but Bors now exiting pit lane, and there goes Richard Wilkes. So we had 35 seconds of a gap to Wilkes. There goes Yannick as well. So it looks like you'll need about 45 seconds gap to be able to get out ahead of whoever is behind you when you pit around MIS. Good to know as the leaders pass this start-finish line this time by. 122 laps in the books. That's really unfortunate, Simon. I would put that down as a hardware failure, sort of like the steering locked up because of some tire residue or similar getting caught in the mechanics of it all. But either way, interesting strategy call by Juha. Comes out, looks like now up to temperature with the tires, about 4 seconds behind Yannick. I believe that is closer than what it was before the pit stops. And Juha presumably with more fuel than anyone else in this race now, considering how long he was able to run, and I don't think he pitted during that last yellow. Unlike Grant Midall and Jonatan. So will be interesting to watch Juha towards the rest of this race. But after those pit stops, we have Richard Wilkes still in the lead, 5 seconds ahead of Brian Yannick, running in second. Third is Juha Bors, having thrown the dice on his pit strategy. Fourth is Grant Midall, having pitted during the last yellow. Still pitted earlier than what Juha Bors did. Not sure how that came to be. August Watering running in fifth, with Jonatan also having pitted during that last yellow, pitted at the same time as Juha Bors. 4 seconds behind Watering, he is running. 2 seconds back down the road is Jules Bouchard in the best placed of the Penske's at the moment. Running the Danny Sullivan car that finished 4th in the real-life race. Right behind him on track, but a lap behind him in the race, is Ray Riddall in the Dick Simon Lola T87. Michael Drexler, the second and last Penske running in its race now, in 9th. The car that Ricky Mears drove in the real-life race. Apologies for that, my cat jumped down in front of me here. Drexler is running in 9th. Filippo Marazzi, driving the car that finished 5th in the real-life race, currently running in 10th. 15 seconds behind Drexler. David Wattman running in 11th, 40 seconds in the rears of me and names sometimes. Filippo Marazzi, who is actually right behind him on track. Yikes! There Marazzi goes, so unfortunately for David, now a lap behind his nearest competitor in front, but only 2 seconds behind him. Still running close together is David Wattman with Bruno Chacon. Lead card racing man, currently last car in the points in his March 87 Cosworth. And also last car running, so all the remaining cars will score at least 1 point. But I reckon Richard Wilkes may already have secured, or very closely at least, secured the 1 point for leading the most laps. As he now enjoys a 6-second lead, ahead of Yannick in second, who himself has pulled 7 seconds on Juha Boss. So Juha clearly running a fuel strategy race, not letting himself be pulled into a fast track race, more running towards a set fuel number that he wants to hit to be able to then maybe, I'd assume towards the last 1 or 2 stints, run much faster and gain back the time that he is losing at this point in the race. And the same, I reckon, could be said for Grant Widall. As I am having just tiny hardware issues for whatever reason. Give me just a second while I try to re-plug my mouse, because it's not working. I can't mute myself, so please bear with me here for just a moment. As hopefully that will have solved that little niggle. It has. Good, good. Looks like Jon Tim is in strife here. He has Jules Bouchard right behind him now. Jules Bouchard obviously running the Penske March 86, a year-old March compared to that of John Tim, but the difference being Brad has that Ilmore power plant. Look at that thing go down the straight. Up and past he goes. Look at that, Ray Ridhall wants to unlap himself. And looks like he is able to do so. This looks like John Tim might be struggling for fuel or tyre temps as well. Presumably running too much wing on that Krakow Racing entry. Compared to what would be suitable for this particular layout of the MIS. So Ray Ridhall, we could see, currently running in 8th in this race. Just under a lap behind the car in front of him. A further lap behind him is Michael Drexler. He has gotten back past Marazzi and pulled the gap as well. Drexler putting it just a bit close to the wall then. Yes, here we have Marazzi, currently running 10th. In the meantime, we can see that Bruno Chacon has been able to pass David Wattman. So Chacon up to 11th. There were only a second or so. The difference still between Bruno and David. While a long race, I reckon they will be happy to have each other to fight with. Even though it will be tiring in the long run, running as close as they are to each other on this 2-mile oval. Looks like watering has closed in on Grant Ridhall once again. Just over a second now between the two. Look at that, watering with a great run, coming off of 2, getting up the inside and going past into 3 through 4, 4th place secured. Thinking just to remind ourselves as we're nearing the last 100 laps of this race. The trivia question for those of you who have joined a little bit later in this broadcast. The trivia question for you to ponder for the last 100 laps or so is who holds the official race lap record for the 2-mile oval at Michigan International Speedway? Is it A. Emerson Fittipaldi, B. Gilles de Ferran, or is it C. Adrian Fernandez? The answer will be given later on in the broadcast. As watering has pulled a little bit over 2 seconds on Grant, and Jules Bouchard in the meantime closing in as well, though Jules looks to be heading into the pits on lap 148 out of 250. Well, yeah, end of lap 148. And someone else was in the pits as well. That was Bruno Chacon, and here comes Brian Yannick all locked up. Makes it straight into his pit stall that time round. And that is August Watering. And here comes Richard Wilkes as well. So the one to look out for is Juha Boos. What will Boos decide to do? Comes out of the pits there. Yannick coming out of the pits. John Tim coming around. There's Grant Vidal currently running second here, and Juha Boos still continuing around. Apologies, another hardware issue. Time to try a different USB port for that particular item. There we are, hopefully that is going to work fine now. as Juha continues around this racetrack. As does Grant, to be fair, and John Tim. Brian Yannick now ahead of Richard Wilkes after those pit stops. So Yannick with a much better pit stop than that of Wilkes. I wonder if Yannick, considering the time he gained, may have done some tire magicry as well, as Grant with all heads into the pit stops, or pit lane I should say, though Jon Tim and Juha Bors continues. I reckon Juha should be able to make it to around lap 160, which with his amount of laps he can do in the tank should leave him with one more stop to make, or a very short third stop left to make. Nope, here he comes. A total of 158 laps completed, just as he heads into his pit stall, and in behind comes Jon Tim as well. Nowhere near as good a position as Juha Bors had last time, coming into the pit stops in comparison to Richard Wilkes and Brian Yannick. But Juha leaving the pits now, and Richard Wilkes has flown by. There goes Yannick as well, but coming back out in third once again. I can only imagine he's trying to go as long as possible to be able to get as short a pit stop in the final stop, as well as being able to run with as much boost as he can for the last stint or stint and a half, or somewhere around that marker. That being said, Wilkes in behind Yannick. Wilkes, who has had the pace so far this race, will be looking to get by Yannick in no time whatsoever, but whether he will be able to do it or not is a matter completely entirely. Let's take a moment to jump on board the Gallus Racing entry, as the Portuguese man is chasing the Detroit Demon in the form of Brian Yannick. track. Some lap traffic coming up as well. Richard with a good run coming into 1, but not the place to try and pass. Generally speaking, on this track, I reckon into 3 is a better option. But Richard needs to try and time his momentum just a little bit better. Looks like a good opportunity. He's close enough to get the draft. Close enough to where he should be able to pull just enough, maybe. Not quite able to make it happen there. Both of them still pulling time on Juha Bols in behind. Though Juha, as we've said, presumably running a fuel strategy race. Up until towards the end of the race. These two looks to be a bit more racy. Grant again having jumped, watering in the pits as well, I notice in behind. Owes Wilkes that time with a run down the back straight, strong enough to get up the inside of Yannick. And Yannick tried to go downwards but noticed, no, that Gallus car is there. I'll have to concede. That being said, Yannick right in behind. Oh, someone has hit the wall in behind there. Not sure who that was. That was a lapped car. That's Drexler, unfortunately. Drexler into the wall. And looks like he might be out of this race. Looks like he is able to continue, but he is being forced to drive very slowly with no rear wing back to the pits. Oh, as he unfortunately spins coming into the pit lane as well. No rear wing makes it really difficult, as well as some suspension damage, but hopefully he'll be able to get going without blowing the engine here. And get it into his pit stall and be able to repair the car. And continue in this race. So Grant still in 4th. August not able to make much of it. Ball still running his fuel race. Now 23 seconds behind Yannick, who is trying to get a grip through Jonatan, lapping the Swede, who's currently running in 6th. And Richard Wilkes still leading, 3 seconds ahead of Yannick, having just lapped Filippo Marazzi. Meantime, Watering still 5th then, 1.3 behind Rideau. John Tim, as we mentioned, in 6th. Jules Bouchard running in 7th, 4 seconds behind Craig Racing Swede. Ray Rideau just behind Bouchard in 8th in the race, just behind him on track. 1 lap behind. Marazzi a further 2 laps behind in 9th. Brun Chacon running in 10th. David Wattman running in 11th, 4 seconds behind the Brazilian. And Michael Drexler still in the pits for repairs after his off earlier. Jump on board with Watering for a little bit, see if he is able to slowly but surely close in on the grid ahead. See a blue flag. I'd assume that is for Richard Wilkes, who is behind him on track. So to note, in oval racing, blue flag doesn't mean get out of the way. It's officially more of a notification. You have a faster car behind you. Keep your wits about you. Though here at ISO we find it applicable to if the faster driver is a lot faster than you, keep your line and they will find a way past you. As Wilkes has just done, past Watering, lapping the American, running 5th in this race. And now Watering surely will be trying to use the slipstream behind Richard to catch up to Grant up ahead. So that is obviously easier said than done, because Wilkes is flying in that Brabham Honda March combination. As there he goes up inside and past Grant Midall as well. So Wilkes has lapped up to 4th place in this race, which is highly impressive. I wonder if, considering what Yua is doing, if he has any fuel to burn now, because we ought to be closing in to the what I'd assume to be the second to last stops for most of these drivers. And looks like Yua will need to try and speed up a little bit earlier than he may have wanted to do, if he wants to stay on the lead lap and with a chance of taking a win in this 500-mile race. Yua did get very close in the Indy 500, but unfortunately a cruel blown engine late in the running put ends to those hopes for him. Look at this, Yannick into the pits, Juha continues. There goes Chacon out to the pits as well. Looks like that is Richard Wilkes coming into the pits. It is. Nice and steady into the pit stall. He has the time to do it. Let's see if he can come out ahead of Brian Yannick. Here comes Bouchard. Really fast into the pit stops. Yikes. He has missed his pit stall by quite a bit. Just lucky the USAC officials are quite kind in terms of, well, kart officials is quite kind in terms of the reversing in the pits to get to your pit stall. And looks like Grant Woodall is ahead of Wilkes. And Wilkes has come out of the pits well ahead of Yannick this time round. As there goes David again. Here comes Ray, and next is Juha Boos. Followed by Marazzi on track. As out of the pits, I'd assume that is watering in the Hamelgarn car. There goes Wilkes past, and Yannick and John Tim. Okay, that ad boarding just looks very off. That looks like someone off in turn 1, or between 1 and 2, but it is not. It's just the advertising awning on the wall. It's the one just before the water tower there. Juha now running long, only 16 seconds ahead of Wilkes. Clearly needs to have some speed in these, what will presumably be for him, last 2 stints. As he'll be trying to run long as Grant has now pitted. Juha has this and maybe this lap, possibly one more, and then he's likely to pit. And look at Wilkes' pace. Despite running with a full tank of fuel, he is still able to keep up with Juha Boos, who's running with no fuel in the car. That Gallus Racing entry really is well set up for this Michigan International Speedway. So I reckon here comes Juha. He does indeed. Into the pits he goes. When he just misses his pit stall, that isn't good for him. And a slow reversal as well to keeping the revs down, not over revving the car. And here comes John Tim as well into the pits, running to Juha's strategy. with that slow pit entry, this may mean that Juha is a lap down by the time he exits the pit lane. That will be a cruel blow to his aspirations of a really good result here tonight. And look at this, a slow stop. Here comes Jonatan out as well, ahead of Juha boss. Yikes, Juha with a real mare of a stop. Behind Grant by 13-14 seconds. Behind Watering, behind Tim. Juha really unfortunate situation there. He will need to put his head down and see if he can catch up at least to third place of Grant Vidal. Though that'll be a tall order, 19 seconds. You are really losing out that time. So 1 lap to go, and then there will be 50 laps left of this race. Half a lap to get 200 laps in the books, with 2 hours and I'd say roughly 6 minutes. So the 2.5 hour race looks to be roughly on point. Look at this now, the leading two has lapped the rest of the field. And they are running 4 seconds between themselves. Wilkes and Yannick really putting on, I'd say, the drive of the race now. Watering likewise really impressive in his one-off drive, having only done, if I remember correctly, Indy before this. Jonatan now just losing out a little bit to Juha Boos. Looks like it's closing up. Watering is closing in on Riddle. Meanwhile, John Tim is closing in on Watering, and Juha Boos is closing in on John Tim. Oh no, Jules Bouchard has blown! Dear me, Jules Bouchard. Big plume of black smoke, that is an oil fire. The engine block itself has said enough. And kablam! The second of the 3 Penskes is out of this race. One left in the hands of Michael Drexler, running 12th at the moment, likely to be 11th if Drexler can bring the car enough laps to get by Jules Bouchard. As it looks like Jules Bouchard is running along the apron to try and get into the pit lane before he retires to presumably lessen the chance of a yellow coming out. Hopefully that works, and hopefully it won't get caught up with someone running a line low down. We have seen that some prefer to run a rather low line coming through 3 and 4. There is Jules Bouchard retiring, as into the pits is, as the yellow is indeed coming out, unfortunately. So Wilkes pits. Let's see what everyone else decides to do. That's in the pits. Grant with all in the pits. That looks like Brun Chacon in the pits. Here comes another few. Drexler into the pits. Ooh, no! There's a big stack up! Ay, 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 ay! Let's see, that was Ray Riddall, unfortunately, slowing down, and Drexler drilled the back of him. Looks like Riddall still has the parts left on his car. It may have been Wattmann. But either way, big contact, and unfortunately Drexler is out. Presumably that was a question of... it looks like someone was leaving their pit stall, and the car coming in decided to try and slow up to pit behind. But unfortunately for... that may have been David Wattmann actually. Drexler was right in behind and made heavy contact as Yannick comes into the pits, as does Jon Tim. So let's see how all of this sorts itself out, as the yellow, our third yellow of this evening, brings the pace down to a manageable level. And some 32 and a half laps left. So this will be a bit of a fuel race now to the end, I reckon. As the pace car is already coming in. Well, so the green flag is back out. Juha Bols leads them to the green. And there he goes, full pace ahead. Wilkes laps Marazzi. And Bols now will be driving like a scolded rat, trying to keep ahead of Wilkes and put himself into a good position if another yellow comes out. Look at this, looks like you are, at the moment at least, is able to run hard enough to keep ahead of Wilkes. I wonder if he's too far behind now to get a good run, good chance at the win here. That's David Wattman running now with presumably a damaged car as Joa Bols flies by. Slowly but steadily pulling away from Richard Wilkes, but Wilkes could be running straight laps just to keep Yannick at a pleasant gap behind. There goes Joa Bols into the pits, presumably for his final stop of this race. So presumably he can now run pretty much full blast to the end of the race. Wanted to get it done early and hoping that a yellow comes out after the others have taken their final stops. Let's see what happens here. What is the rest of them going to do in terms of fuel? Watering is enjoying a third place here at the moment, but we can see that just 3.5 seconds behind is Grant Riddle, who has his dad close behind on track. Not too far behind either. Behind him is Jonatan. Ray Riddle looks to have retired. Blown engine. I was looking the other way as that happened. He just disappeared behind Grant. I noticed it late. What happened early on relative to where he was. Already flames behind the car here. Understandable why Jonatan was keeping a very low line. There it went, pretty much top end, coming down the front straight, and it gave up the ghost, so to speak. So Ray Riddle unfortunately out of this race. Another engine block crying enough, and the race continues on the green. It's now 2.7 seconds only between Yannick and Wilkes. Can they make it to the end of the race though with the fuel they have left on board? And can anyone else? Because obviously Boss pitted late for his final bit of fuel. What about everyone else? Now with 11 laps left, let's keep an eye on the top two. Ten laps to go for the leading two. Look at this, the gap is closing down to 2 seconds between Wilkes and Yannick. And this is definitely the crunch point. 242 laps completed, 8 to go. The drivers are tired, the tires are tired, the engines are tired. Will everything hold together or will anything break? I reckon Yua was rolling the dice that there would be one more yellow before the end of the race. Seeing as he stayed out and then had to pit, it doesn't look like anyone else of the leading cars is going to need to pit. And as Wilkes crosses the finish line this time by, it'll be 5 laps to go and 2.5 seconds his lead ahead of Yannick. And keep in mind, Brian Yannick hasn't won a race in this series since the first round at Phoenix. Meanwhile, Richard Wilkes so far haven't won a race in this championship. So either it's going to be a first win of the championship for Richard Wilkes in 3 laps time, or it might be Brian Yannick's second win in the series. Meantime, looks like it's status quo behind for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, as well as for 7th and 8th. And as Yua Paul sets the fastest lap of the race, clearly showing he had pace, but unfortunately not quite the luck with the yellows. Two laps to go, 2 seconds to gap. Final lap coming to the finish line, and Richard Wilkes takes the win, his first win of the series in round 9 here at the Marlboro 500. Great driving from Wilkes and likewise from Brian Yannick, who finishes second for Curb Racing. Third will be August Watering. Great result for the Hemmelgarn Racing man in Scott Brayton's car, finishing on the rostrum here tonight. Grant Riddall finishes fourth, with Jon Tim in fifth. Juha Bors finishes sixth. Filippo Marazzi has finished seventh. Brun Chacon has finished eighth. And David Wattman just finishes ninth, with Ray Riddall scoring 3 points for 10th. Jules Bouchard finishing 11th for 2 points, and Michael Drexler finishing 12th for 1 point. Great effort from Richard Wilkes. And let's see, we may get just a few burnouts here. We do. Great effort from Richard. One period it is, and then into the winning circle. Another set of periods for Richard Wilkes, and Brian Yannick looking to try and get in there, but decides against it. Let's see if August Watering may decide to go in there. No, he doesn't, but nicely put for Richard Wilkes into the winning circle. Congratulations to him for a fantastic race effort. So, another 500 miler done for us here at ISO. We have one more in a few rounds' time. This one was great. Unfortunately, some unfortunate retirees early on. But the racing in the end was really good. Especially the battle for the lead, as well as Juha Bors putting on a alternate strategy to try and get a good finish in the race. Unfortunately, didn't quite pan out for him. He finished 6th in the race, putting a fastest lap late on in the running, but still showing some promise for the final, I believe, 2 ovals that we have left in the championship. But while we wait to see if any drivers wishes to join us for an interview after this race, let's do the trivia question. So the question for you all were, who holds the official race lap record for the 2-mile oval at Michigan International Speedway? A is Emerson Fittipaldi, B is it Gilles de Ferran, or C is it Adrian Fernandez? I know BL went for A. I did notice we are joined in the booth by Richard Wilkes. So Richard, congratulations on the win, and before we interview you, for the trivia question, who has the race lap record at MIS? Is it Fittipaldi, de Ferran, or Fernandez, do you think?
I'll go with the Ferran.
A well-sorted guess, I'll say, but unfortunately wrong. Adrian Fernandez has the race lap record at Michigan International Speedway at a 30.767 set in 1996. So, again, congratulations, Richard. You must be quite happy with that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, I would lie if I didn't say I was. It was not easy at all. Brian kept me honest until the end, and I was holding my breath for the engine, because the engine on this thing is not the most reliable one on the grid. But fortunately, this time it held. So here I am.
And you showed some good pace at Indianapolis already and a few of the other ovals. Did you come into the race thinking that you would have a decent chance at getting a good result, or did that materialize during the race for you?
Well, I felt I had a decent pace, but because people have been very shy about practicing on the server, I had no idea what kind of pace the rest of the grid could do. I mean, yes, historically, like you said, I've been competitive on the ovals, so I was hoping I would be at least up there. I have to say that I could keep a decent rapid pace without having to worry much about the fuel, at least. I had fuel to spare in the end. I don't know how the rest of the people were faring on that, but at least in that sense, I could have gone a bit quicker. Although you cannot go much quicker because the nature of the track, if you try to go very fast, you will burn your tires up. So it was a fine balance between the fuel, the tires, and what kind of pace you could hold without making a mistake because the car was very loose
Hmm. And you say we're worried about Brian. I noticed late in the running that halfway through the race, that Juha was trying an alternate strategy, and he decided to stay out during that last yellow. Did that put you in any position where you thought if there was another yellow, he would have been a contender as well towards the win and a battle for that?
Well, once we did our last pit stop, no, because I knew I could go all the way to the end, and given that I had track position, I knew that he couldn't catch me in any normal circumstance. Even if there was another yellow, the maximum he could do was, go around and come to the back of the field. So that's, well, I didn't want any more yellows, honestly, after that last one. Fortunately, they didn't happen. But this was there were a few yellows in this race. I was surprised about that.
Yeah, there were a few big crashes that called for it. One of the yellows, they probably could have decided not to put out the cart people, but all in all, I think if I counted it correctly, there were three, so two would have been
Yes.
correct as such. But
Thank
again,
you, everybody, for.
go on.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you. I was just going to say, I want to thank everybody that joined us today. These long races, they are much better if you have a decent field. And so I want to thank each one that lined up on the grid today. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well for putting on a good show, and congratulations once again on your win. Likewise, congratulations to Brian Yannick for a well-driven second place, and to August Watering for a one-off drive, and the Scott Brayton machine finishing third on the rostrum here tonight. And also
Well done.
congratulations to everyone who finished this race, because it looked like a difficult one to drive.
It was, yes. It wasn't easy. It might look a bit like that, but no, the cars are always moving around a bit. So it's definitely a challenge.
Good stuff. Well, looking ahead, we have the ARC Bavaria Rennen Salzburgring coming up next weekend on July the 6th. 2000 CEST is the race start. Jason White will be in the booth for that one. That's the 1979 DRM Division 2 Championship, the penultimate round. And following that, the week after, we have the Escort Radar Warning 200 from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, round 10 out of 15 of our 1987 kart championship. Championship still very much up for grabs, and everything to play for. 2000 CST, the race start for that. And with that, thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Thank you to our drivers for putting on a really good show. And until next weekend for the DRM Championship race, have a great week, be kind to one another, and take care, everyone. Good night.